Okay, this is a second attempt, and I still can't talk. Maybe I might get through this. I wanted to do a review. I'm already in the beginning of chapter 5 of my book, and I said I was going to do a review on it, so I wanted to do on the chapters that I've read so far. The book is The Root of Rejection by Joyce Meyer. My friend Sue sent me a box of books. Very cool. Mentioned this in the last video. This is the book that I decided to start with. And it's not because it's a short book either, because it's only 90-some pages, but for me, I really had an issue with rejection, so I figured this was the book that I really was pulled towards first. So I'm winging this. I was trying to take notes, and I'm not very good at that, so I figured I would wing it, so just bear with me here. Okay, the first chapter is on identifying the root of rejection. It says, "He was despised and rejected and forsaken by men, a man of sorrows and pains, and acquainted with grief and sickness, and like one from whom men hide their faces, he was despised, and we did not appreciate his worth or have any esteem for him." This is Isaiah 53:3. For me, it's like it's really something to think that somebody would want to die on the cross for me. And it's definitely something that I think that everybody should try to understand. And I definitely have an awful lot of, well, I'm trying to have, I shouldn't say an awful lot, but I'm trying to have more faith in the Lord. And I really think it's awesome, you know, what Jesus did. And I think that everybody should love him for that, because, I mean, I never thought that anybody would do that for me. So it's great, you know, it really is. And so many people in today's world are trying to prove their worth by climbing the ladder of success. They seem to think that if they can just get a job promotion, a bigger house, a better looking car, if they can get into the right social circles, then they will finally have the worth and gain acceptance. And she continues to write that how sad to see people caught up in the pursuit of such empty practices, never realizing that the only thing they ever truly needed was the love of Jesus Christ. And Joyce is right on that. It really is the truth, you know. And that's one of the things. It's like, for me, I don't care about money. You know I need to have a job. I'm still trying to find work and everything, and I need to really push to do harder for that. If I could just snap out of this tiredness. But anyway, but money has never meant really anything to me. I mean, like, maybe when I first started working, when I was younger and everything, it was a big deal, and material things and whatnot, but I just don't care anymore. I really don't, because money is just such a terrible thing, and it destroys lives, you know, it destroys just anything, families, relationships, and it's just not worth it, you know. And I mean, if I can put all of my energy into just trying to find the love that Jesus has for me, trying to see that, if I could take, you know, and trade in all my material possessions and whatnot, just to focus solely on the love of Jesus Christ, I think that right there would be just amazing, you know. You would get so much more out of it than what your material possessions could ever give back to you. So it's definitely something to think about. And she goes on to saying here that Jesus himself did not enjoy the acceptance or approval of men while he was on earth. He was despised and rejected by men, and he endured all these things and more so he could free us from the root of rejection. And it's just something to think what one man could go through, and the suffering and whatnot that he went through just for us, just for me, you know. It's like, you think, oh my goodness, I'm not anything fancy and everything, but he doesn't want us to be. He just wants us to be who we are, you know. And it's just like going to church and stuff. You don't have to dress fancy. And if anybody treats you rudely, if they reject you because you're not dressed fancy, don't worry about it, because the Lord takes you as you are and for what you have and everything. He doesn't need you to be fancy. He doesn't need you to be anything other than what you are. And that's really all that matters. No amount of material possessions will ever save you from anything. It'll never save you, because it's just stuff. In the end, that's all it really is stuff. But your bond with the Lord is so very important. It's so crucial at a time like this. And I encourage everybody, to try and find a church, which I don't go to church, but it's not for me, but if you find that it's important for you, I recommend it. Give yourself to the Lord, get baptized, be saved, and know that there is somebody there for you. Now, there are many causes of rejection. Joyce lists here abuse. Now, for me personally, physical, verbal, emotional abuse are something that has affected me in my life. And she also mentions turmoil within the home, which I only highlighted. I'm only saying the ones I highlighted, but I've also experienced what I felt as abandonment and obviously pure rejection. But for anybody else that is watching this, another form of abuse is obviously sexual abuse. She lists adoption, unfaithfulness in marriage, divorce, etc. Because there really are so many things. There's so many forms of rejection that it's unreal. You don't even really give it thought unless you're experiencing it yourself. Another thing is there's this book called Creative Suffering by a noted Christian physician and counselor, Paul Turnier. And in this book, he writes that as many as 3/4 of those who become celebrated achievers are estimated to have suffered serious emotional deprivation or hardship in childhood. And one of the things, too, I think a lot of people have probably heard that a lot of famous people are lefties and everything, which I am. I'm definitely left-handed, but a lot of people, too, writers, singers, actors, whatever, have all suffered some kind of turmoil, tragedy in their lives to kind of turn them to find an outlet. And if you're doing that for a good thing, to try to find an outlet and try to help somebody else so that maybe they don't have to suffer the way that you did, that's good. And I pray that more people will start to do this rather than using it for something that maybe isn't completely necessary and helpful. But a lot of these people have just felt so worthless inside that they will work themselves practically to death trying to have some value, and as a result of that, many of them become successful. So Joyce definitely gives us something to think about there. It goes on talking about a gentleman by the name of David Brainerd's. Well, it's David Brainerd. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing this right. You can find out about him in a book called The Hidden Price of Greatness, and it relates to stories of many great men and women of God who were used by him in mighty ways in the past. And the book explains how childhood suffering often sets the stage for a life of struggle. And in one part here it says that apparently he, which would be David, would get some insight and try to practice it for a little while, but would go right back into that and the works and suffering. And that's something that I think that we can all find ourselves doing. It's like you say you're going to go on a diet and you're fine for a while, and then you're like, oh, well, I'm doing pretty good, so I'm going to sneak this in. And then you, like me and everything, then you eventually fall off the wagon. And it's definitely something that happens with rejection as well. You think you're doing really good, you kind of got yourself perked back up and everything, and you're feeling better and you're loving life, and then the next thing you know, something will happen and you'll just gradually slip back into the way that you were, whether it be drugs and alcohol or a form of like abuse, whatever it is. It's just something that it comes back, and it's definitely a struggle. And to go on here, let's see. It's hard when you're trying to, like she says, you're exhausting yourself to try to climb the ladder. A lot of people figure that, well, okay, I'm just a worker out here on the floor, and you have your, like your head of department, whatever, and you really want to be high up like that. You want to be salary, you want to make more money, so you figure you need to work harder to reach the top of the ladder. But in doing that, you're actually killing yourself to reach a title that really isn't important anyway. I mean, a lot of people might look at you and say, well, you're not good enough because you're not him. But you have to stop and think that you are who you are, and people need to love you for you, and if they don't, then you don't need them. You really don't need them. Another thing that stood out to me is the fact that the devil is a liar. And my friend Marianne Hockey has reminded me of that in an email, and it's true. It's like you got an angel on one shoulder, you got the devil on the other shoulder, and well, the devil might be a little bit more fun and everything. He's a liar, he's going to tell you that, oh, it's okay to have that drink, it's not gonna affect you, but then in the end you become an alcoholic, and it doesn't always work out like that, but it's just times where he can really talk you into stuff that it's not necessary, and he can also badmouth you and tell you, that you're not good enough and really run you down. It's a voice in your head, and it makes it really hard to stay positive. One of the things that I have, this is definitely true, is the fact that you keep thinking that something is wrong with me. And you might begin to think that, well, the real me is not acceptable, so I need to pretend me. And I know I've definitely done that. Before I got homeschool, I remember being in the halls in 8th grade, and I'd swear an awful lot. I'd be walking through the halls with my friend Nicole, and and it's like I wasn't even really having a conversation all the time. I was just swearing just to swear, because I thought that made me look better, and it made me look bigger, and that maybe I wouldn't have to get homeschool, because maybe if I took and I swore and I got nasty, maybe people would accept me and everything, when the fact the matter was that wasn't me at all, and everything. That wasn't who I was, but I was trying to be somebody else in the hopes of being accepted, and that's what you're trying to avoid here. You don't want to be somebody else, you need to be who you are. And once it says here, you can actually reject yourself because someone else rejected you, which is something that's very common, and then you become full of confusion and inner turmoil. Your tree begins to bear the bad fruit of depression, negativism, lack of self-confidence, anger, hostility, controlling spirits, judgmentalism, chip on the shoulder, hatred, and self-pity. And the roots determine fruits. Rotten fruit comes from rotten roots, and good fruit comes from good roots. And that's another thing that Joyce definitely spoke to me on, because for me, I to this day am still dealing with the depression and everything, and being negative. I'm trying to work on that. I have a big lack of self-confidence, and I have a tendency to be angry over stuff. I can be very judgmental at times, which is really hard for me, because I don't like that. I don't agree with it, and it's hard because I can look at somebody and tell them, well, you're not supposed to judge people, but then on the other hand, I do it myself, so how is that fair, Hatred and self-pity, and a lot of people might consider what I go through at times as self-pity. And again, I don't mean to do that, but sometimes it happens. But she goes on to say that if you are rooted in acceptance and love, then you will develop good things in your life. And some of the things that we want to seek out are self-control, meekness, faithfulness, goodness, kindness, patience, peace, joy, and love, which sounds a whole lot better than the other group, doesn't it? And one of the things that happens is, like she says here, but lo and behold, as I began to gain control in some areas, the bad fruit of rejection would just pop up elsewhere, It's like you think, oh, I got all my bills paid up, and then all of a sudden this bill comes in the mail, and it's like, wait a minute, where did you come from? So it's definitely something like that. And another thing that I struggle with, and she said she struggled with it too in here, is as a believer, you're trying to be good, to do things right. You're trying to make your behavior acceptable, but sometimes you can't be perfect, because nobody's perfect, and that's one of the things that I'm dealing with, is the fact that I want to be perfect, and you can't. There's no way to do it. There's nobody that's perfect. So that's one of those things that I really need to work on. And I guess what I'm going to wind up doing here is, looking at the time, is I'm going to have to take 15 minutes out for each chapter, which is going to drive everybody completely nuts, but for me, I just feel like it's something that I need to do. But you should be glad, because at least I'm not going to sit here and be like Mother Goose and read you the whole... I'm not going to read you the whole book out and everything, because I could do that, so I don't know. But for me, it's just something where, if I'm going to do this, I would like to give more things than just like a one-liner and then have you try to fill in the rest of it. I would like to give you a little bit more to go on and to be able to understand, so... right now, that's about it for chapter 1, is just kind of getting a realization, trying to get you know, the whole idea of what the book's going to be about and what it's going to cover and everything is pretty much where that goes. And then we're going to get ready to go into the next chapter, so stay tuned.